Heather Chauvin, welcome to Woman Owned.
Thank you, Eleanor. I'm so excited to be here.
So, I want to start with your woman owned story.
Where to begin? Um, I never decided or wanted or desired to be a business owner. It came out of pure desire to want to making an impact in the world. And mothering was the first thing that cracked me open. And I saw a huge pain point, which was helping women see and understand their children's emotional behavior. Because, of course, I wanted to see and understand my own children's emotional behavior. And fast forward, that was almost 20 years ago, which we'll get into why I look like an infant and have a 20-year-old child. But yeah, fast forward. Fast
It's
forward,
true.
yeah. Now I support women in leadership roles, helping them see and understand their team's behavior, helping them see and understand their children's behavior, and all human behavior. Because I truly believe a well-resourced woman is what's going to change the world. And in 2013, while I was in startup, while I was raising my kids, I was diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer, and that also really taught me that we can want to make a huge impact in the world and want to do all this work. But if we are not looking within ourselves and putting ourselves on the calendar first, we're not going to get very far. So that's in a nutshell how I got to where I am today.
I couldn't agree more. I think, people will wonder, why am I struggling so much to lead my team? Or, why I know that I have this potential to have real transformational impact in the world. But if we don't start with the heart of that self-leadership, like that's the origin of everything else, it's really difficult to have any kind of sustainability, from that. And that's actually what we're going to talk about. So, one of the things that you're known for is time and energy management, and really how we harness those two things to have impact. I would love for you to take us back, to walk us through how you've applied this in your own business to create a really successful, high impact business. I'd love for you to go back to the beginning. So often we create the things that we most need. Take us back to sort of the beginning or a time when you were not practicing the time and energy management to the degree that you are today. Take us back to that moment. What was going on in your business? What did your life look like? What did your business look like?
So I always like to say, I go back to my diagnosis, and I do not identify as a cancer survivor. It's not a part of my personality. It's not a part of I don't necessarily want it as a part of my brand or my business. It is something, it's a moment that happened in my life that taught me lessons. 9 years before my diagnosis in 2013, I was investing in mentorship. And I had all the tools, Eleanor. I read the books, I had the mentors, I attended the retreats, and I knew what feeling good was all about. Everyone, feel good. This is how you manifest, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this isn't practical. I do not see how a woman going after her dreams while also raising children can feel alive, aligned, and energized. But it wasn't until my diagnosis where this belief, what I call mental energy, this belief and the story that I kept repeating in my mind, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And seeing that outside of myself in almost every single woman that I came into contact with, regardless if she was a business owner or not, I was like, oh, this is the belief that I am supposed to have as a good woman, as a good mother, as a good business owner, a successful business owner. So my diagnosis taught me, because I felt backed into a corner, that if I continue to tell myself that I don't have time, I'm literally not going to have additional time on this earth. So I need to figure out how to reverse engineer how I want to feel. And that's kind of when I took the practical and sometimes BS that is taught in personal development, which could probably be a whole other podcast conversation. And I'm like, how can I put this into a step by step process so I can figure out how to invest the resource of time to feel and energy to feel the way that I want to feel, because I want to grow my business and I want to be present for my kids and I want to feel alive and aligned. And I know burnout is, that's just, I don't have the privilege to be burnt out. I don't have the opportunity. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. So that was the moment where I'm like, I need to become my own resource and figure this out.
What did the business look like before that specifically? Like when you kind of, when you were at that stage, so you'd received this diagnosis, and that's obviously like a major wake up call. And I appreciate um, you saying that you didn't have the privilege of being burnt out. And I know burnout is this serious thing and people talk about it all the time, but um, a lot of people have to keep working and grinding. Like they have to keep paying their bills. They like this is very, very real that this is, unless you have like sources of independent wealth, you need to keep providing for yourself and family. You have to keep the lights on, you have to, all of that, not to mention if you desire to grow. But if you take us back to what did, in very real terms, what did your business look like? What kind of work were you doing? What did it look like for you at that time in your business? Because we want to sort of see what did it look like before you implemented these kinds of things. So walk us through what that earlier stage of business was like for you. What were you selling? What were you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What did it look like?
So, okay. So, number one, I could probably go to like different stages of my business and how like
Hmm.
different additional moments that I've had where I've always had this
Yeah.
belief of I don't have the privilege to fail. Um,
Mm.
Self-fulfilling prophecy or not, I'm like, there's many points where I have felt like I'm backed into a corner. So if someone's like, I keep repeating this pattern, I'm here again and again, I'm like, yeah, we have expansive seasons, and sometimes we feel like we're back to a wall. So it doesn't have to be a crisis that happens in your life if
Hmm.
you're resonating with this. So I was in
Hmm.
startup. I was about a year in, and I was doing one on one coaching at that time. So, previous to that, I was transitioning from my corporate career as a social worker. And I say corporate because it was definitely corporate. And
Yeah.
I left, signed the paperwork to leave because of my mat leave was over. And it was that I left the safety net. And so I had one on one clients. I was doing the webinars. And this was what? He's 12 now. This is 12 years ago. And people didn't even know really what the online space was. They didn't like, I used Skype back then. They thought virtual was weird. And so I would do a webinar, I would do, and then I would hold them in a container of space for one on one coaching. That's mainly what I was doing. I did not yet move to a group setting. So I
Yeah.
had one on one clients and I was doing calls from my hospital bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you look back at that, and you need to continue running your business and working, you have this little baby, that, and very real, life circumstances that you're dealing with. When you were like, I don't have time, do you remember like the big shifts that you wanted to see? What was your goal at that time? Like, what did you want to see change as a result of really getting on top of time and energy management to feel the way that you wanted to feel and create the kind of results? Like, what was your hope at that time? What did success look like for you then?
I mean, my hope at that time was to survive. That's what success was
Yeah.
for me. But I also wanted to continue growing my business. Um, I knew, like, I actually feel like working during that time was life enhancing for me because I get so much. I'm so passionate about what I do. Looking back, I feel like it helped me heal, like having a little bit to work on to focus outside of disease, outside of recovery, like something proactive in my life that was beyond my roles, like giving back per se. But I remember specifically going, do I want to let this go and then like re-enter the corporate world, go get another safe job, or am I going to run towards these challenges? Eleanor, I don't know if you've ever heard this term, and I should actually scientifically look this up because I could be lying because it's a fable and the internet is a lie. But like the cow versus the bull, where like a bull will run towards the storm where a cow will run away from it or they'll lie down. So a bull spends less time in the storm because they run towards the emotional discomfort or the storm, and so they get through it quicker, where a cow is like hanging out in it longer. When I use
Mm.
that analogy, I ran towards growing my business through my diagnosis. It catapulted me. But what I realized in the moment was, and I'll talk about energy management in a minute, is I'm like, if my biggest fear is in my face right now, then I can do anything. And what I realized was I was afraid to ask for I was afraid to increase my prices. I was like, I didn't enjoy sales back then. So it forced me to do, like, it pushed every insecurity that I had. And I just felt like I didn't have any other option. And I just ran towards everything that I didn't,
Mm.
that I was running away from previously. And so the energy management piece around that was really about, I need to have some resource. I need to have some energy in order to be able to heal and to grow and evolve. And in order to do that, I have to figure out how I want to feel. And so the process that I started focusing on was, wouldn't it be nice if, and I talk about this all the time, I put down on a piece of paper, wouldn't it be nice if, and everything that I desired. And some of it had nothing to do with my business. And then I got clear on what is the feeling that I'm after, because Danielle Laporte had her book out back then, Desire Map. That's when it came out. And it was like, it's not the thing you're after, it's the feeling. I'm like, okay, I want to feel alive. I want to feel energized. I want to feel abundant. I want to feel strong. I want to feel connected. So I knew the actions I needed to take in my business, but I also asked myself, how can I take these in alignment with how I wanted to feel? And then I used the resource of time and the little time that I did have and the little physical energy that I did have. And I started focusing on the needle movers. I started focusing on the tasks that were going to get me closer to where I wanted to go. And most of those tasks, as I'm assuming you are very well aware, were wrapped in resistance. They were, it's the
Mm.
frogs, it's the deep work. They were wrapped in
Yeah.
resistance, they were wrapped in fear. And so, because I'm like, I don't have the capacity to waste time. I don't have the capacity to waste energy because I have such little of it and I have so much responsibility around me. So, out of all the things that I need to do, what do I need to do? How do I feed myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually today, 10 minutes, if that's all I have the capacity for? And what's the top 1 to 3 things that I need to do today to move the needle in my business? And it just cut out all the BS. And in my brain, I was like, this is not going to make an impact. This is not going to move the needle at all. And
Be
it's,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the
So
biggest game
when you look
changer.
at those, yeah, when you look at those, so let's kind of break that down a little bit. So when you look back at that time, so you are in treatment, you have a baby, you are coaching one-on-one, and there's something inside you that's like, you know what, growing this is the way. Like moving toward this discomfort it's not just a distraction, like this is what I am supposed to do, and this is what feels right for me. And so you kind of take your own medicine, you start to develop your own medicine. And you start to, in doing that, it brings like this huge focusing lens. When you look back on, and we're going back 12 years now, right? But if you go back, what was an example of like the number one thing, the number one needle mover at that time that you focused on strategically? So yes, it's the energy management, but I want to apply that to like a thing that people can sort of look at. For you, what was that one thing?
Okay, so I had 3 kids. So it was my youngest that was a baby. So they were 9, 5, and a year old. The
Oh my
number one
gosh.
thing was emotional regulation. Like, honestly, it was
Mm.
not, when I look at
Yep.
strategically, like, people are always like, tell me the strategy, tell me the tips, tell me
Hmm.
the tricks. And I'm like, okay, am I going to be that woo woo person that's always talking about your managing your emotions? And I'm like, yeah, because fear no longer dictated my action. That number one,
Mm.
fear no longer dictated my action. Guilt no longer dictated my action. I was so grateful at that stage for all of the work that I did up to that point because I was in a position where my passion bucket of my life was full. Like, if every
Mm.
area of your life is a bucket, you're like, my marriage, my health, my finances, my children, my blah, 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 right? Just take all the buckets of your life, little pieces of pie. My career, I already took the big leap. I already took the big leap. I already faced a lot of my fears. I already did the thing, but I realized I no longer gave a shit what people thought because I was like, well, I know what the alternative is if I don't try here. So I might as well try anyways. So fear no longer dictated my action. I felt in
Mm. So
control.
what did you do? Yeah, what was an example of something you did because of that emotional regulation? So emotional regulation allowed you to not be dictated by fear.
Mhm.
And so what happened? Yeah, what was something that maybe, without that regulation you didn't do, but you were able to, do or be or do something that really drove the needle for you?
Okay, so I'm going to tell a few stories and I think I'll
Yeah.
answer your question through stories. So, first, I see everything as energy. So we have our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. Physical energy to me is like physical time, the energy of time. You're 24 hours in a day. It's also your physical body. Mental energy is like the beliefs that we have and the stories that we tell ourselves. Like, I don't have time. I can't do this. No, everyone's going to judge me. Emotional energy, that's like emotional regulation. And then spiritual energy to me is just desire. I mean, I'm not adding religion or religious beliefs to it.
Mhm.
It's just, what do you desire? What is inside of you that desires to come out, that desires to be birthed? And I, without knowing, was managing all four of those energies. And I remember talking to people and observing their energy being projected towards me of like, how did that feel when it landed? Oh, that person is expecting me to rescue them right now because they're so uncomfortable with my diagnosis. So I'm like, I'm going to hold a
Mhm.
boundary. I'm going to hold a boundary with that person. They're not allowed to visit me anymore. I don't have the capacity for this BS. So I just decluttered any like any energy that was not in alignment with how I wanted to feel. And I was super laser focused on what I needed to do to accomplish for that day. So then I would go back to my list. I would put a few things on the list. I also call it a 10-minute habit. I think when we're starting this process and we're like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know, I'm doing all the things, but nothing's moving the needle and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, we're not doing the things that are needle movers. We're not prioritizing those
Mm.
because they're wrapped in big emotions. They're wrapped in resistance. Because to be honest, I branded my podcast to Emotionally Uncomfortable. You say you want joy, you say you want more money, but our identity is not around those things. Our identity is around not having enough or not feeling enough or not being enough. So it is emotionally uncomfortable to get what you want. It is emotionally uncomfortable to be living the dream that you once put on paper because sometimes we don't have the capacity for that. So I was
Mhm.
just head down, laser focused on if I deeply trusted myself, what action would I take first? And I started doing
Mhm.
those things.
And what were those things
Oh, it
for
was,
you?
yeah, for
Yeah.
me at
What
the
were
time.
the things for you? Yeah.
At the time, it was sending the emails for pitching myself to be on somebody's podcast or a collaboration. It was
Yeah.
doing follow up, like sales follow up with people who were like, I'm interested in working with you, but didn't like, come back around. It was actually reaching out to the clients that I did have and over communicating to them. I have the capacity to work with you. If I don't, I will let you know. It is not your job to manage my energy. So it was making sure that the clients that I did have were happy and I could over deliver with the energy that I had. And, we had those conversations. I didn't avoid anything that was uncomfortable for me, still putting myself out there. Still chipping away and doing the things that I needed to
Mm.
do that would have
This is
otherwise
so
caused me
important.
fear.
Yeah. This is so critical because so much of success is in the implementation. Like, can you actually implement it? And the thing that holds people back from implementing is a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, that can be that when they aren't emotionally regulated or regulating their emotion or aware of these things, when they have all of the clutter, it does become there's no space to implement. So that's, yeah, very cool. Very cool. So how has that changed? So at the time, initially it was things like um, clearing away everything that may have gotten in the way of you putting yourself out there. Clearing away and being very conscious of holding a boundary that you are not going to manage other people's energy around you being sick, or doing sales follow up at a time where you didn't really enjoy sales. How has that, your ability to regulate your emotions, your ability to practice, put into practice your own sort of medicine and system around time and energy management? I'm curious how it has evolved as your business has evolved. Like, what does it look like today?
Yeah. So I still use that wouldn't it be nice if I actually use it with my
Mm,
whole team. And now I have oh my gosh, including our coaches and mentors on the inside, we have about 30 people on the team. And then we have like our immediate, and then the implementers, all the things. So every, I care about people probably more than the average leader. And when I say average
mm,
leader, I don't just mean I know people care about their people, but especially energy management, because people are like, no, 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 I want to serve, I want to do the things. And I'm like, listen, if you burn out, nobody wins here. The wouldn't it be nice if is my go to prompt. I use it for myself, I use it for everybody on the team. I'm constantly ruthlessly asking myself, how can I buy back time and energy here? A few years ago, I had huge stress come up in my personal life, and my body started to feel it, and I started getting brain fog and fatigue, and I got really, really scared because I knew I wasn't sick, but I knew my capacity was shrinking. And I just remember talking to my team about it, and it forced me to look in the mirror and go, Heather, what work are you doing that isn't yours to carry? Like, what is on your plate that isn't yours to carry? It's time to refine again. And so we're always trimming, we're always decluttering, we're always getting super crystal clear of like, what is the busy work here? So when I use that wouldn't it be nice list and I go through it with myself, I ask myself again, it's the same process. What is the feeling that I'm after? What areas of my business do not feel that way? Have I outgrown that? Is there like an elevated client that I want to attract? Am I done offering this product or service? What is my soul craving? What newness do I want to bring into my business? And where am I actually just trying to sabotage success in my business? And I ask the
mm.
team the exact same thing of like, what feels aligned to you and what doesn't feel aligned? But I often find myself having to create safety first for them to feel safe enough to speak their truth and to honor what they truly
Yeah.
want to feel. But the more resourced they are with time and energy, the quicker we move, the quicker we can scale and grow. And it's just fascinating to watch. But it's also fascinating to watch resistance around feeling good when you're not used to it, or making more money when you're not used to it.
Say more about that.
Um, when you're used to feeling like you don't have a lot of energy, physical energy mental energy, emotional energy. You've created an identity around that. And then you go out into the world and you try, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You try to like create connection through how you feel, like, oh, the economy, oh, my, my age, oh, my da da da. Oh, and it's like everyone's like, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And then you're like, okay, good, I'm not alone. You're For me, it's really reverse. I'm ruthless about reverse engineering. I truly believe that if the desire is in me, it's for me. So, whatever I put on that list, wouldn't it be nice if I might write something down and go, ooh, that feels like a stretch. That feels like a challenge. And then I'm going back to it every single day and asking myself, what tiny action do I need to take today to get closer to that? Oftentimes, I
Mm.
find we're getting stuck because we're not looking at that list. We're not looking at the future self. It's not that we're not managing our energy, is that it's actually a fear based strategy to keep you where you are in your comfort zone. And you get really, really used to, I feel like women are really good at suffering. And when you are recovering from being a chronic sufferer, and I just made that up now at this actual second,
That's a good one.
a
That's a good
chronic
one. Yeah.
sufferer, um, then you have to decide that feeling good is your north star. But when you're headed towards that, like there were moments where I'm like, why do I feel like I'm leaving the pack? Why do I feel like I'm
Yeah.
being like misplaced? Why do I feel like I'm removing myself and I'm actually lonely here? Just opting out of toxic motherhood, opting out of hustle culture. And I'm like, I will take strategic, aligned action. But the second I'm like, this is not serving me now and in the future, and I can see the train wreck that's going to happen if I keep going at this pace. I have a smart idea.
Mm.
Why don't I continue to take aligned action and then outsource and train somebody to do the exact same thing? Look, we get there quicker and I can still go to the gym and work out and eat healthy and spend quality time with my family. And then when I'm triggered and I'm like, what if, that's just emotional energy that I need to manage. So I'm always managing these four types of energy. And even when I do get more in my life and it feels scary or uncertain, I sit with that and I'm like, this is your next level. You've just jumped into the bigger fish tank. Now you got to sit there until you feel cozy and comfortable. I understand that that's part of the process. So I've accepted the emotional discomfort.
Mm. As you're talking through, the process that you go through and the questions that you ask, starting with wouldn't it be nice if, which is such an awesome question. I think wouldn't it be nice if um, is a really ninja question because it's an indirect and helpful way of getting at what do you really want? You know, sometimes what do you want can be, it's like a club. I don't know, wouldn't it be nice if, oh, wow, you can think of lots of things. So it becomes a great pathway to desire. So I love that process. But as you were, really talking through it, it reminded me of looking at constraints theory, which we talk about a lot on this show, that people don't necessarily rise to the level of their potential. They fall to the level of their constraints. And what you're talking about is looking at constraints theory, which can sometimes feel very procedural and kind of antiseptic, but looking at it through a very nourishing and emotional lens. So you look at it starting with you. What wouldn't it be nice if, where are the things that feel heavy and feel kind of, clogged and stuck? And where are the things that feel expansive? And how do I start to move away from these heavy things toward the things that I want? And what would it look like to be able to let these things go? I think it's a very powerful way to take, to kind of look at a really cool tool, but through a lens that I think serves us at the level of the person. A lot of times when we're looking at constraints, we're looking at like business processes, but they start with people. So it's beautiful. Yeah. I'm curious. that when you look back on the growth of your company, you've built a successful company serving all kinds of fantastic people, you have great partnerships, great team, all of those things. How would you quantify the effectiveness of the work and process that you've outlined here? What would you point to say, for those skeptics who are like, it's woo, you know what I mean? But you'd be like, not, well, actually, not, I know that you don't actually really care what they say, but, how would you quantify the effectiveness of this work as a business growth tool and approach?
I'm going to tell a story. And this happened last night. So I was with my son. Well, we're recording this at the beginning of the year, or November. And I went trick or treating. He's 12. I'm like, I'm not going to get many years left. So I'm going. He's like, I want to go with this friend. And I was like, okay, I'm calling up the friend. I'm like, hey, I'm tagging along. I'm going to be probably trick or treating with you and your husband. And I'll just walk along. And this individual I knew when I started my business, this woman. And I know she follows me and I don't really talk to her that often. And I remember what her dreams were. I remember what she told me she wanted and desired. And I could see very clearly that she gave up. She gave up on her dreams. She gave up on her desires. And I thought to myself, I kept going. I kept going. I didn't give up. I have fear on a weekly basis, maybe not daily, probably daily, weekly, guilt, uncertainty, overwhelm, setbacks, challenges. And I have finally come to the acceptance I am the type of person that will not give up. Even though sometimes mentally I'm like, I'm going to give up. I want to give up. That's a
Nothing like
lie.
a well-timed empty threat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Like
lie.
I'm empty threatening myself right now.
Yeah. I remember I saw a video you posted a little bit ago. You were like, there was once I wanted to give up. What did you say? Once you wanted to give
Yeah.
up, but what came after that?
For for like for like 20 minutes.
Yes. But
Then I
then you
kept
said,
going.
then you kept going. And I was like, oh, I've wanted to give up more than once. But
Yeah.
I I think the reason why I don't do that as much now because I force myself to do things that I don't think I'm capable of completing. And then when I complete it, I'm buying back the self-trust and proving to myself that I am capable. And so my courage challenge and risk with myself gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm like, oh, that's easy. That's child's play. So I just won't give up. And then sometimes I
Mhm.
go there and I'm like, let's play this mental game. Okay, you give up. Then what? Then what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, that feels like death to me. And I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah.
stop playing these head games, Heather, and get back on the horse, get back in the game. This is me just talking to myself, like in the morning or while I'm making a coffee. Get back in the game and keep going. You are the type of person that won't give up. It doesn't matter how fast or slow you're going. Don't give up. So I always go back to my wouldn't it be nice list. And then I'm asking myself, what do I need to do today to chip away at this list, but doing it in alignment with how I want to feel as much as possible, while also bringing along the big emotions that are going to show up, like fear and overwhelm and guilt or whatever, imposter syndrome, and just carrying some of those energies with me while also not giving them as much power and influence as I used to.
Mm, that's really powerful. And I think, and I appreciate a couple of things about what you shared. One is this concept of just chipping away, like just chipping away. And I think we need to talk about that more as entrepreneurs because I think in the culture now, the pace of innovation and change is absolutely rapid for sure. It does require levels of responsiveness and awareness from us. But nevertheless, great companies are built over time, where you have a sustainable impact, where you have sustainable systems, where you have the time to be able to, as you say, identify what are the parts of this business that feel heavy And rather than 100% pivoting away from them, how can I start to create some systems and chip away at systems that so that 3 months from now or 6 months from now, I'm in a different place,
Mm-hmm.
and the company is in a different place. And that does take time. Most of the great companies that I know, like the truly well-built companies that they just have a really nice energy about them inside them. Things feel orderly and well taken care of. And we're not talking about perfect, but we're just talking about there's a really good presence inside that organization. They've taken time to build because it can be messy. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate when you shared that, you force yourself to do courageous things because I think in that getting in tune with our desires, sometimes there's this idea that it means you never have to do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think often it means that you regularly, for me
Yeah.
anyway, I regularly am going to do things that feel hard,
Mm.
and things that feel used to feel hard, they're just no big deal today.
Yeah. Do you know
Yeah.
how I feel about the statement of you can do hard things?
Oh, I want to know. Tell me.
I don't actually believe in hard things. I think we're a little addicted to hard. Um,
Oh, tell me more. Say more.
so I don't believe action is hard. I believe the emotion trap, like around it, is emotionally uncomfortable. So I remember when I don't know what season or phase it was in, but it was like, you could do hard things, you could do hard things, choose your hard. I mean, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
That number one, it just doesn't resonate with me. It feels very masculine, which is totally fine. I do a lot of quote unquote hard things, but I just started to sit with that and I'm like, this feels like there's a part of me that needs to make it hard to prove
Hmm.
to myself that I can do it or that I'm good enough. So I'm like, no, I'm not here for that. I I can take action. I can send the email. I can pitch myself. I can put myself on Instagram. I can step on that stage. I know how to walk. I can walk on a stage. That's not hard. It's emotionally uncomfortable to speak in front of 1,000 people. So I'm like, getting up there is not difficult. This is easy. It's my perception that is emotionally uncomfortable. So if I work on the story that I'm telling myself, I'm getting to the root of what is really going on. Because I was going to the gym and I'm like working hard at the gym. And then I started getting
That's
personal.
true.
I'm started
Yeah,
personal
that's
training and my trainer is like, uh, can you slow down a little bit? How about you put in 60 to 70% because your 100% is not the average person and you're trying to kill yourself in the gym. And I'm like, but I'm told I can do hard things. I got to choose my hard. So I'm like, it's actually emotionally uncomfortable to go to the gym consistently. It's not hard.
well, and I'm thinking about, so I just squatted 200 pounds. I hit a 200-pound squat goal, and
That's
I'm asking
it,
myself,
Eleanor. That's it.
I know, that's it. I know. It's
And
like nothing. So this was a big goal, right? And I'm working toward it. But what I realized about it was because before I'd been sort of working primarily on muscle development versus strength, and strength is all nervous system, or it's a lot more nervous system than muscle development. And so as you were saying that, I was like, was that hard? It was definitely scary. So it's emotionally uncomfortable to challenge yourself and be like, if I can't lift it, I'm going to have to bail. I
Mhm.
will have to bail this weight. You know what I mean? So there's a part, but it was also hard, but it was more scary and this emotional adjustment than it was actually physically hard. The physical hardness is you're just pushing. It's not actually that hard. You're recruiting lots of effort, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actively testing out. Was that hard? Because there's so much, you're so right. There's so many things that we use the word hard, but it's actually very easy. It's like you talk words that you know how to say.
Mhm.
You take steps and coordinate physical action to walk on a stage that you've been doing since you were two. That is not hard. It is emotionally uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What a liberating way of looking at it. We need to inform Glennon because I feel like she's the originator. We need to, you know what?
I
It's like
tagged
this
her.
this would be a good conversation for you to have with her.
I know. I thought about it. And
Where
it's
can Yeah.
language. It's language. And I that's another conversation too when you're picking up other people's language. Like such a game changing phrase for people. Yes, take hard action, and you get to define what things mean to you, and you get to change and you get to evolve. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is the beauty of conversation. This is the beauty of diverse thinking. This is the beauty of going, I'm going to make this my own so that I can figure out how to move in a way in the world where I can thrive and I can succeed.
Yeah.
And one day you're going to be doing 200 pounds and being like, I could do this with my eyes closed. This was so
All day long.
emotionally
That's called
easy.
that's called next Tuesday. Yeah. Just kidding.
Exactly.
So tell us, where can folks go to learn more about you? Certainly they should be listening, or they we invite them to listen to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. Where else should they go if they want to take a deeper dive into the work and the resources that you've shared today?
Yeah. So go to my website, Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com. And actually, if you go to /time, I do give some like practical, logical step by steps on this energetic time management. So go check that out. I give you the videos, the PDFs, all the things. And I always love when people like message me on Instagram at Heather Chauvin. Let me know what you walked away with from this conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Eleanor.